7 reasons why people play you for a fool. Stoic philosophy. The first step toward being respected is learning to respect yourself. Marcus Aurelius. Have you ever felt like people take advantage of your kindness? Like no matter how much you give, some people only seem to take, pushing your limits, testing your patience, and treating you like a pawn in their game? If so, you're not imagining it. The truth is, some people will mistake your generosity for weakness, your trust for naivety, and your patience for permission. But here's the thing, you don't have to play their game. Today on Stoic in Your Life, we're breaking down the 7 reasons why people try to play you for a fool, and more importantly, how to flip the script. By the end of this video, you'll see their tactics from a mile away, know exactly how to set boundaries, and step into the kind of unshakable self-respect that makes people think twice before trying to take advantage of you. No more being used, no more second-guessing your worth. It's time to take back control. Let's get started. Reason number 1, you don't set boundaries. If you do not conquer yourself, you will be conquered by yourself. Napoleon Hill. One of the biggest reasons people take advantage of you is because you don't set boundaries. Without clear limits, people will continue to push, test, and take from you, knowing there are no consequences. It starts small. A coworker borrows your pen and never returns it. A friend constantly shows up late without apologizing. Or a family member keeps making demands on your time without considering your needs. You let it slide because you don't want to create conflict. But each time you allow these small transgressions, you send an unspoken message. My time, my energy, and my respect are negotiable. Over time, these minor intrusions turn into major violations. People start expecting you to always be available, always be agreeable, and always put their needs ahead of your own. But here's the harsh truth. If you don't set boundaries, you will be drained, used, and left wondering why people never respect you. The problem isn't that people are inherently malicious, it's that human nature gravitates toward what is easy. If someone can get something from you without resistance, they will keep talking. This is why boundaries are not just important, they are necessary. A lack of boundaries is a lack of self-respect. When you fail to establish limits, you are essentially saying, I don't value myself enough to protect my peace. And if you don't value yourself, why would anyone else? Marcus Aurelius once said, a man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions. If your ambition is to be respected, then you must start by respecting yourself enough to draw the line between what you accept and what you do not. Climbing. Modern world is full of distractions, demands, and people who will take advantage of you if given the chance. Your boss might keep piling work on your desk because you never push back. Your friends may call you only when they need something because you've never made it clear that your time is valuable. Your family may expect you to always be available because you never say no. But setting boundaries isn't about shutting people out. It's about training them on how to treat you. It is about making it clear that while you are kind, you are not weak. While you are generous, you are not limitless. Many people fear that setting boundaries will make them seem selfish or unkind. This fear keeps them trapped in a cycle of over-giving and under-receiving. But let's be clear, boundaries are not about being rude, aggressive, or distant. They are about clarity. They are about defining what you will and won't tolerate. Seneca put it best when he said, he who is everywhere is nowhere. If you stretch yourself thin trying to accommodate everyone, you will end up exhausted, resentful, and unfulfilled. The best way to avoid this is to establish firm but fair boundaries in all areas of your life. Start small. If a coworker asks for help at the last minute when they had ample time to prepare, politely decline. If a friend always cancels plans without notice, let them know that your time is valuable and you won't make plans unless they commit. If a family member constantly interrupts your time to rest, Let them know that you are unavailable at certain hours. When you begin to set boundaries, people will resist. They are used to the version of you that always says yes, that always accommodates, that never complains. But stand firm. The right people will respect you for it, and the wrong people will fade away. Either way, you win. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not a master of himself." Freedom comes from taking control of your life, your time, and your energy. Boundaries are the foundation of that control. If you don't set the terms, others will do it for you, and you will not like the results. So the next time someone tries to push past your limits, remember this. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow. If you allow disrespect, it will continue. If you allow manipulation, it will persist. If you allow exploitation, it will never stop. But if you demand respect, if you make your standards clear, if you set boundaries and enforce them, you will see a shift. People will recognize that you are not to be walked over. They will think twice before taking advantage of you. And most importantly, you will start to see yourself in a new light, as someone who values themselves enough to protect their own well-being. At the end of the day, setting boundaries isn't just about keeping bad people out. It's about making space for the right people to come in. The ones who respect you, appreciate you, and understand that your kindness is a gift, not an obligation. Your life, your time, and your energy are precious. Protect them. Because if you don't, no one else will. Reason number 2. You're too trusting. Trust, but verify. Ronald Reagan. Trust is one of the most powerful forces in human relationships, but it's also one of the most dangerous when placed in the wrong hands. If you find yourself repeatedly betrayed, manipulated, or used, it's not because you're unlucky, it's because you're too trusting. Now that might sting a little, but let's be honest. How many times have you given someone the benefit of the doubt, only for them to turn around and disappoint you? How often have you believed in someone's words, only to realize later that their actions told a completely different story? Trust should be earned, not handed out like free samples at a grocery store. Yet, so many people are quick to place their faith in others, believing that if they treat people well, they will be treated the same in return. But that's not how the world works. The reality is that not everyone deserves your trust. Some people see kindness as an opportunity, not a virtue. They will smile in your face, tell you what you want to hear, and use your trust as leverage to get what they want. And by the time you realize their true intentions, the damage has already been done. Think about it. How many stories have you heard about people being scammed, betrayed by a close friend, or deceived in a business deal? Every day, good people fall victim to manipulators simply because they assume that others operate with the same integrity they do. But as Marcus Aurelius said, the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. And the truth is, blindly trusting everyone is insanity. Take the story of Chris, a hardworking entrepreneur who built his business from the ground up. He was passionate about his work and always believed in giving people opportunities. When a longtime friend approached him for a business partnership, Chris didn't hesitate. He trusted the man completely, never questioning his motives or setting up clear agreements. Months later, Chris found out his partner had been funneling clients and money into his own separate business, using Chris's trust as a stepping stone to advance himself. By the time Chris tried to fix the situation, it was too late. His reputation had taken a hit, his finances were drained, and he was left picking up the pieces. This isn't just Chris's story. It's the story of countless people who trusted too quickly, too easily, and without proper caution. So how do you protect yourself while still keeping an open heart? First, understand that trust should be built over time, through consistent actions, not empty words. People show you who they are not just by what they say, but by what they do consistently. If someone keeps making promises but never follows through, that's a red flag. If someone's words don't match their actions, believe their actions. Warren Buffett once said, "Trust is like the air we breathe. When it's present, nobody notices, but when it's absent, everyone does." This means that real trust should feel natural, earned, and mutual. If you constantly have to second-guess someone, they don't deserve your trust. Second, set boundaries. A person who truly respects you will never feel threatened by your need for clarity. If someone is in a rush to gain your trust without proving themselves, slow things down. This applies to business, friendships, relationships, and even family. You don't owe anyone blind trust just because they ask for it. Ask yourself, has this person shown consistency? Have they acted in my best interest when I wasn't looking? Have they proven themselves reliable in small things before I give them bigger responsibilities? These questions help filter out those who truly deserve a place in your life from those who are just looking for an opportunity to take advantage. Lastly, trust yourself more than anyone else. Your instincts, your experiences, and your observations are your guide. Too often, people ignore their gut feeling because they want to believe the best in others. But your intuition picks up on things long before your mind processes them. If something feels off, don't dismiss it. If someone's behavior is inconsistent, pay attention. As Seneca wisely said, "He who does not prevent a crime when he can, encourages it." The same applies to betrayal. If you allow someone to keep crossing the line, you are enabling them. Now, this doesn't mean you should become cold, distant, or cynical. It means you should be discerning. There's a difference between being open and being naive. True wisdom lies in balancing trust with wisdom. If someone values you, they will respect the time it takes to earn your trust. The wrong people will demand it instantly. Pay attention to that difference. Protect your trust the way you would protect something valuable, because that's exactly what it is. So, what's the takeaway? Stop handing out your trust like a free pass. Stop assuming that just because you mean well, others do too. And most importantly, stop ignoring the signs when someone shows you they are not trustworthy. Trust is not a weakness when placed in the right people, it's a strength. But when given carelessly, it's an open invitation for betrayal. You deserve relationships, personal, professional, and otherwise, where trust is respected, valued, and reciprocated. And the only way to get that is by being selective about who gets the privilege of your trust. Because once broken, trust is never the same again. The choice is yours. Will you be cautious and wise, or will you keep allowing yourself to be played? Reason number 3, you ignore red flags. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Maya Angelou. How many times have you seen the signs and chosen to ignore them? Maybe it was the friend who kept making excuses and canceling plans at the last minute. At first, you gave them the benefit of the doubt, but over time, you started feeling like an afterthought. Maybe it was a coworker who constantly took credit for your ideas, and instead of calling it out, you told yourself it wasn't a big deal, until it kept happening. Or maybe it was that partner who made promises they never kept, always saying the right things but never following through, leaving you feeling confused and undervalued. The truth is, people rarely deceive us without warning signs. The problem isn't that the signs weren't there, it's that we chose not to see them. But why do we do this? Why do we ignore red flags even when they're waving right in front of our faces? Is it hope? Is it fear? Or is it simply the discomfort of confronting reality? The hard truth is that ignoring red flags doesn't make you noble, it makes you vulnerable. It's not kindness to pretend bad behavior isn't happening. It's self-sabotage. We convince ourselves that people will change, that situations will improve, that what we're seeing is just a one-time thing, even when deep down we know it's a pattern. But if there's one thing life and philosophy teach us, it's that people reveal themselves through their actions, not their words. Marcus Aurelius once said, The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Likewise, people's behaviors and decisions paint a clear picture of who they really are, if only we are willing to see it. A person who constantly disrespects your time won't magically start valuing it. A manipulator who twists your words and plays mind games won't suddenly become honest and direct. A liar doesn't become truthful just because you wish them to. Think about the last time you ignored a red flag. What was the cost? Did it drain your energy? Did it waste your time? Did it break your trust? Maybe it even left you questioning your own judgment, wondering why you didn't act sooner. This is why it's so crucial to trust your instincts. Your gut feeling is there for a reason. It's an alarm system designed to protect you from harm. But too often we silence it because we don't want to face the discomfort of confrontation. We don't want to admit that someone we care about isn't who we thought they were. We don't want to believe that our investment in a friendship, a relationship, a job was a mistake. So we hold on, hoping things will change, when in reality, we should be changing our response. Stoicism teaches us that wisdom is seeing things as they are, not as we wish them to be. Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." So when someone shows you who they truly are, how do you respond? Do you make excuses for them? Do you give them endless chances? Or do you take the lesson and move forward with clarity? This applies to every aspect of life. In business, ignoring red flags can lead to financial disaster. In friendships, it can lead to betrayal and disappointment. In relationships, it can leave you emotionally drained, trapped in cycles of toxicity. The consequences are always there, whether we choose to acknowledge them or not. But here's the good news. You have the power to stop this cycle. It starts with paying attention and believing in what you see. When someone constantly disrespects, you believe it. When someone lies, manipulates, or shifts blame, believe it. When a situation repeatedly makes you feel uneasy, trust that feeling. Because if you don't, you are the one allowing the pattern to continue. The key is not just recognizing red flags, but acting on them. This means setting boundaries, walking away when necessary, and refusing to invest in people or situations that drain you. It means valuing your peace of mind more than the illusion of something that was never real to begin with. So let me ask you, what red flags have you been ignoring? What signs have been nudging you, trying to wake you up, but you keep looking? The other way? And more importantly, what will it take for you to finally listen? Because the moment you stop ignoring red flags is the moment you take control of your life. And that's where true power lies. The choice is yours. Will you keep hoping for change, or will you change how you respond? Reason number 4, you're afraid of confrontation. The truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose, and it will defend itself. St. Augustine. One of the biggest reasons people take advantage of you is because you're afraid of confrontation. You avoid conflict, thinking it keeps the peace, but in reality, it only allows others to control you. How often have you swallowed your frustration, let things slide, or told yourself, it's not worth the argument? Maybe a coworker keeps taking credit for your ideas at work, and instead of calling it out, you stay quiet, convincing yourself that everyone knows the truth anyway. Or perhaps a friend constantly belittles you with jokes that cut too deep, but you laugh along because you don't want to be seen as too sensitive. Or worse, you're in a relationship where your needs are consistently ignored, but rather than address the problem, you keep hoping things will change on their own. But here's the hard truth: silence is not strength. Every time you refuse to stand up for yourself, you reinforce the idea that your feelings, your thoughts, and your boundaries don't matter. People learn how to treat you based on what you allow, and if you never push back, you teach them that there are no consequences for their behavior. Avoiding confrontation doesn't just make life harder, it makes you weaker. Stoicism teaches us that a man must master his emotions, not be ruled by them, and part of that mastery is the ability to face conflict head-on. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the very thing you're avoiding is the thing you must confront if you want to grow. There's a misconception that confrontation means aggression, but that's not true. True confrontation is about assertion, about standing firm in what you believe and refusing to let others dictate your worth. It's about looking someone in the eye and saying, "No, this is not acceptable. No, you will not speak to me that way. No, I will not allow you to cross this line again." And the moment you start doing this, something powerful happens. People start respecting you, and more importantly, you start respecting yourself. Look, at any strong leader, any successful businessman, any person who commands respect, and you'll see that they are not afraid of confrontation, not because they seek out conflict, but because they refuse to let fear silence them. Take a moment and ask yourself, how many opportunities have you lost because you were too afraid to speak up? How many times have you let someone take advantage of your kindness because you didn't want to cause tension? How much energy have you wasted replaying conversations in your head, thinking about what you should have said? The truth is, most people who avoid confrontation are not avoiding conflict. They're avoiding discomfort. They fear rejection. They fear disappointing others. They fear that standing up for themselves will make them look bad. But what's worse? A few moments of discomfort? Or a lifetime of being walked over? The solution isn't to become aggressive or combative. It's to develop calm confidence. The kind of presence that lets people know, I am not someone you can push around. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When you embrace confrontation as a necessary tool for self-respect, you stop seeing it as a threat and start seeing it as a form of self-care. This doesn't mean you have to fight every battle. Some things are best ignored, and wisdom is knowing the difference. But when something truly matters, when someone is crossing a boundary that threatens your peace, your values, or your dignity, you must be willing to stand your ground. And here's the irony. Most of the time, the confrontation you fear is never as bad as you imagine. People respect directness more than you think. A simple, "Hey, that's not okay with me," or "I need you to stop doing that," is often enough to reset expectations. So what is stopping you? Fear of how they will react? Fear of losing the relationship? Fear of looking weak? Let me tell you something. There is nothing weaker than a man who cannot stand up for himself, a man who lets others dictate his reality, who sacrifices his own, needs to avoid temporary discomfort, who lets disrespect slide because he doesn't want to deal with it. That is not peace. That is self-betrayal. And the longer you allow it, the more it destroys your confidence, your self-worth, and your ability to take control of your life. Winston Churchill said, "Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen." Confrontation is not just about speaking up. It's about listening to yourself and acknowledging when something is wrong. It's about choosing respect over comfort, growth over fear, and truth over convenience. Now ask yourself, where in your life have you been avoiding confrontation? Who has been taking advantage of your silence? And what would change if you finally had the courage to stand up and say, "Enough"? Because the moment you do, the game changes. The people who once walked over you will take a step back. The situations you once felt powerless in will start to shift. And most importantly, you will feel a strength within yourself that you haven't felt in years. The choice is yours. Will you keep avoiding the hard conversations? Or will you take control and finally demand the respect you deserve? Thank you for being here and taking the time to invest in your growth with Stoic in your life. Your presence in this community shows that you are committed to becoming stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Now, let's open up the conversation. Which of these 4 reasons resonated with you the most? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone took advantage of you, and what did you do about it? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your insight could help someone else who is facing the same challenges. And if you're not sure what to comment, just drop "I refuse" to be played, to let me know you're taking back control. Now let's continue our conversation. Reason number 5, you seek validation from others. No man is free who is not a master of himself. Epictetus. One of the biggest reasons people take advantage of you is because you seek validation from others. The need for approval is a silent prison, keeping you trapped in a cycle where your sense of worth depends on how others see you. How many times have you hesitated to make a decision because you were afraid of what people might think? How often have you gone out of your way to please others even when it drained you, just because you didn't want to disappoint them? Maybe you stayed late at work, hoping for a simple good job from your boss that never came. Maybe you wore yourself thin trying to be the perfect partner, friend, or family member, expecting that your sacrifices would be recognized. But the harsh truth is this: seeking validation is a losing game. No matter how much you give, there will always be someone who expects more. No matter how much approval you chase, it will never feel like enough. Why? Because when your worth is based on external validation, you're handing over control of your self-esteem to people who may never truly value you. The problem with constantly seeking validation is that it makes you easy to manipulate. People sense when you crave approval, and they use it to their advantage. A boss will keep piling extra work on your desk because he knows you'll say yes, eager to be seen as a team player. A friend will take advantage of your generosity, knowing you won't speak up out of fear of seeming selfish. A partner will take your kindness for granted because they know you'll keep trying harder to earn their affection. When you rely on external approval, you give others the power to define your worth. But as Eleanor Roosevelt wisely said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. If you're constantly looking for permission to feel good about yourself, you're setting yourself up to be controlled. Look around. How many people live their lives for others, never realizing that they are sacrificing their own happiness? There's the man who stays in a job he hates because society says success is about having a prestigious title. There's the guy who stays in a toxic relationship because he's afraid of being alone and thinks his value comes from having someone beside him. There's the friend who never says no, always bending over backward to be liked even if it means neglecting himself. The irony is that the more you chase approval, the less respect you get. People admire those who stand firm in their convictions, who don't need constant reassurance, who are comfortable in their own skin. But when you seek validation, you send the message that your value is negotiable, that you are only as good as the next compliment, the next approval, the next pat on the back. So how do you break free? It starts by realizing that self-worth must come from within. Instead of waiting for someone to acknowledge your hard work, acknowledge it yourself. Instead of needing someone to validate your decisions, trust that you are capable of making the right choices. Marcus Aurelius said, "A man's worth is no greater than his ambitions." If your ambition is to be truly free, you must stop handing over your confidence to others and start defining your own value. The next time you catch yourself looking for approval, stop and ask, why do I need this validation? What do I truly gain from it? Am I living for myself, or am I living for others? These questions force you to confront the reality that you are already enough as you are. You don't need permission to be worthy, successful, or respected. This doesn't mean you should ignore feedback or never appreciate encouragement. It means you should no longer be dependent on it. True confidence isn't about arrogance. It's about certainty, knowing that you are enough regardless of what others think. The strongest men, the ones who command respect, are those who do not waver in their belief in themselves. They don't chase validation. They don't beg for approval, and they don't let the opinions of others dictate their self-worth. And ironically, because they don't seek it, they naturally earn more respect. When you stop needing validation, people start to notice that you carry yourself differently. You become the person in the room who doesn't need constant reassurance, who doesn't beg for attention, who simply is. And that presence, that quiet, self-assurance is what truly makes you powerful. So I'll ask you, how much of your life have you spent trying to gain the approval of people who probably weren't even thinking about you? How many of your decisions have been shaped by the fear of judgment rather than the confidence of your own instincts? And more importantly, what would your life look like if you stopped seeking validation and started living for yourself? The moment you stop letting others dictate your worth is the moment you take back control. That's real freedom, that's real power. The question is, are you ready to take it? Reason number 6. You fear being alone. A man must stand erect, not be kept erect by others. Marcus Aurelius. One of the biggest reasons people take advantage of you is because you fear being alone. You tolerate disrespect. You put up with one-sided relationships, and you keep toxic people in your life. Not because you don't see their flaws, but because you're terrified of facing life without them. The fear of loneliness is powerful, and it convinces you to accept less than you deserve. How many times have you stayed in a friendship that drained you, simply because you didn't want to lose a familiar presence? How often have you clung to a relationship that no longer brought you happiness, all because the idea of starting over felt unbearable? And how many times have you surrounded yourself with the wrong people just to avoid the discomfort of solitude? The truth is, loneliness is not about being alone. It's about being disconnected from yourself. The problem isn't that you don't have others around you, it's that you don't know who you are when they're gone. We live in a world that glorifies constant connection, where being alone is seen as a sign of failure. Society pushes the idea that success means being surrounded by people, that happiness is measured by the number of friends you have or the approval of others. But Stoicism teaches us the opposite, that true strength comes from self-sufficiency. Seneca once said, "The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself." Think about that for a moment. How much of your life have you spent trying to fit in, trying to please, trying to be someone that others want you to be, when the real challenge is learning to be content with yourself? The strongest people, the ones who command respect, are those who are comfortable in their own company. They don't beg for attention. They don't tolerate disrespect just to avoid solitude. And they don't settle for relationships that bring them nothing but stress. The problem with fearing loneliness is that it makes you vulnerable. People can sense when you are desperate for connection, and they will use it against you. A manipulative friend will keep you around because they know you won't walk away. A toxic partner will string you along because they know you'd rather endure unhappiness than be single. An employer will exploit your need for validation, piling work on you because they know you won't risk losing their approval. When you fear being alone, you hand over your power, allowing others to dictate your happiness, your time, and your sense of worth. But ask yourself, who are you when you strip away the noise of others? Do you even know? Think about the most confident and successful people you admire. They have one thing in common. They are complete within themselves. They do not rely on external validation to feel worthy. They are not afraid to walk alone. This doesn't mean they reject relationships, it means they choose them wisely. They understand that a relationship, whether personal or professional, should add value to their lives, not drain them. They embrace solitude as a time to reflect, to grow, and to build a stronger foundation for themselves. If you struggle with being alone, maybe it's time to shift your perspective. Instead of seeing solitude as a punishment, start seeing it as an opportunity. This is your chance to focus on yourself, to build the life you truly want, without compromise. How do you? Start first. Stop chasing connections that don't serve you. Let go of the people who only keep you around for their own benefit. Stop filling your time with meaningless distractions just to avoid being alone. Instead, use that time to develop yourself. Read, learn, exercise, build a skill, create something of your own. When you do this, you will find that loneliness fades. Because you are no longer looking for others to complete you, you are becoming complete on your own. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." The same applies to relationships. It is better to have a few meaningful connections than to surround yourself with people who only take from you. So let me ask you, are you truly happy with the people in your life, or are you just afraid of what happens if they leave? Do they add to your growth or do they drain your energy? And most importantly, what would your life look like if you embraced solitude instead of fearing it? Because the truth is, you are never truly alone as long as you have yourself. And once you understand that, you become untouchable. You stop settling for toxic relationships. You stop tolerating mistreatment. You stop begging for acceptance. Instead, you move forward with confidence, knowing that the right people will come, not because you need them, but because they choose you, just as you choose yourself. The moment you stop fearing loneliness, you take back control of your life, and that is where real power begins. The question is, are you ready to step into it? Reason number 7, you give too much without receiving. If you are giving away more than you are receiving, you are training people to take advantage of you. Unknown. Giving is a noble act, a sign of strength and generosity, but giving too much without receiving in return is a guaranteed way to be taken for a fool. When you constantly give without setting boundaries, people start to see your kindness as something they are entitled to rather than something to be appreciated. Think about it. How many times have you gone out of your way to help someone only to realize that they never do the same for you? How often have you been the one picking up the pieces, the one who listens, supports, and sacrifices? Yet when you need something, the people you helped are nowhere to be found. Giving is a beautiful thing when done with the right people, but when you give without limits, without expectation of mutual respect, you set yourself up to be used. The problem isn't that you are generous. It's that you are giving from depletion rather than abundance. There's a difference between generosity and self-sacrifice, and if you don't learn that difference, you will always feel drained, unappreciated, and undervalued. People are naturally inclined to take what is freely given. They will accept your help, your time, your energy, and your resources, not because they are bad people, but because you never made it clear that your generosity has limits. Think of your kindness as a well. If you keep drawing water without letting the well refill, eventually you will run dry. And the harsh reality? Most people don't notice when the well is full, but they sure notice when it's empty. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If you allow yourself to believe that your worth is tied to how much you give to others, you will become trapped in a cycle of overgiving, constantly trying to prove your value through acts of service. But real worth isn't measured by how much you do for others. It's measured by the balance you create in your relationships. Take a moment and ask yourself, are the people in your life giving back to you in a meaningful way? When was the last time someone checked on you, offered support, or did something for you without expecting something in return? If the answer is rarely or never, then you're in a one-sided dynamic and it's time to reassess. Now you might be thinking, but I don't give to receive. That's noble, but let's be realistic. Relationships, whether personal or professional, should never be one-sided. A friendship, a partnership, even a family bond should have a natural exchange of energy. When you keep giving without receiving, you aren't just being kind. You're allowing others to take advantage of you. Seneca wisely said, "A gift consists not in what is done or given, but in the intention of the giver." Giving should feel good, not leave you feeling used. If you are constantly giving out of obligation, guilt, or the hope that one day people will recognize your efforts, you are not being generous. You are being manipulated. Let's put this into a modern-day scenario. Take David, a man who always says yes. He stays late at work because his boss needs him. He lends money to friends who never pay him back, and he always picks up the phone when someone calls, even when he's exhausted. Over time, he starts to feel resentful. He watches as others move forward in their careers while he's stuck doing extra work with no promotion in sight. He sees his friends enjoying life, while he's left with unpaid debts and no reciprocity. And worst of all, no one thanks him, because they've come to expect it. David isn't a victim. He trained people to treat him this way. The moment he said yes without conditions, he taught them that his time, money, and effort were up for grabs. And that's what happens when you give too much. You teach people that they can take without giving back. The way out of this cycle is boundaries. You must learn to say no, not because you don't care, but because you care about yourself too. The strongest men, the most respected individuals, are not the ones who bend over backward to please everyone. They are the ones who know their worth and protect their energy. Warren Buffett once said, "The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything." If you want to stop being taken for granted, you need to set limits. This doesn't mean you stop helping people. It means you help wisely. Give when you truly want to, not when you feel obligated. Support those who appreciate your generosity, not those who expect it. And most importantly, ensure that your giving doesn't leave you empty. So let me ask you, are you giving to build meaningful relationships? Or are you giving because you're afraid of saying no? Do the people in your life value your generosity, or do they take it for granted? And most importantly, are you willing to start protecting your energy, setting boundaries, and demanding reciprocity in the relationships that matter? Because the moment you do, everything changes. You will no longer feel exhausted from giving. You will feel empowered knowing that your generosity is given on your terms to the right people for the right reasons. And that is how you take back your power. If you've made it this far, you're already reclaiming your power. Drop a comment saying, "I see clearly now," to show that you're committed to no longer being played for a fool. Stay strong, stay wise, and stick around. Your journey to self-mastery is just beginning. Why saying no makes you more respected than saying yes? Saying no is one of the hardest yet most powerful skills a man can develop. It is a single word, but it holds immense weight in defining your boundaries, self-respect, and ability to control your own life. Too many people struggle with saying no, not because they lack the ability, but because they fear the consequences. The fear of disappointing others, of being perceived as selfish, or of losing opportunities. However, research from the University of California found that those who struggle to say no experience significantly higher levels of stress, burnout, and resentment. The inability to decline requests, obligations, or social pressures can lead to a life where you are constantly accommodating the needs of others while neglecting your own. And ironically, the more you say yes, the less people respect your time. Because if you are always available, your presence loses its value. The psychology of saying no is deeply connected to social conditioning. From a young age, many of us are taught that being agreeable makes us likable, that saying yes means we are good people, and that refusing requests is rude or inconsiderate. This mindset is especially ingrained in men who are raised to be providers or protectors at the expense of their own well-being. Society rewards self-sacrifice, but only up to a point. because there's a fine line between being generous and being exploited. Saying yes to everything might make you seem helpful, but it also makes you expendable. People will continue to demand more of you because they know you won't refuse. But when you start saying no, something powerful happens. People begin to take you more seriously. They recognize that your time, energy, and presence are not unlimited, and therefore they start valuing it more. The irony is that those who confidently say no are seen as stronger, more disciplined, and more self-assured than those who always say yes. This is because saying no requires conviction. It signals that you have priorities, standards, and control over your own life. It communicates that you do not allow external pressures to dictate your decisions. Successful people, high achievers, and respected leaders all have one thing in common. They protect their time ruthlessly. Steve Jobs, for example, once said, "It's only by saying no that you can concentrate on the things that are really important." If you say yes to everything, you end up with no time for the things that truly matter. But when you say no, you create space for better opportunities, meaningful relationships, and personal growth. However, the key isn't just saying no, but saying it without guilt. Many people feel the need to over-explain their refusals, soften their words, or provide unnecessary excuses. But this weakens your stance. A confident no doesn't require justification. It stands firm on its own. When you decline something that doesn't serve you, you are not rejecting the person. You are simply protecting your priorities. And surprisingly, people respect that more than they resent it. A well-placed note communicates strength, clarity, and purpose. It tells the world that your time is valuable and that you are not available for things that do not align with your goals or well-being. In professional settings, mastering the art of saying no is essential. Research from Harvard Business Review suggests that employees who set clear boundaries are perceived as more competent and efficient than those who always take on extra tasks. This is because overcommitment often leads to decreased performance, while those who focus on their priorities excel in their areas of expertise. In relationships, whether romantic, familial, or social, saying no establishes a healthy balance of respect. It ensures that you are not constantly sacrificing your needs for the convenience of others. And in personal life, the ability to say no protects your mental health, prevents resentment, and ensures that your time is spent on things that genuinely matter to you. So how do you develop the ability to say no without hesitation? First, recognize that your time is a limited resource and every yes is a trade-off. Before agreeing to something, ask yourself, is this truly important to me? Does it align with my goals? Will it take time away from something more valuable? If the answer is no, then decline it. Second, practice saying no directly and confidently. Instead of long explanations, use clear statements like, "I can't commit to that right now," or, "That doesn't align with my priorities." You don't owe anyone a justification for protecting your energy. And lastly, understand that disappointing others is not a failure. It is a necessary part of living on your own terms. The truth is, people may be upset when you first start enforcing boundaries, but those who truly respect you will adjust. And those who don't? They were only interested in what they could take from you, not in your well-being. So ask yourself, how many times have you said yes when you really wanted to say no? How much of your life has been dictated by obligations that weren't even yours to carry? And what could change if you started valuing your time as much as you value the approval of others? The most successful, respected, and self-assured individuals are not those who constantly agree. They are those who know when to say no and stand by it. The next time someone asks something of you, take a moment before responding. If it doesn't serve you, don't hesitate. Say no, without guilt, without fear, and without regret. The science of solitude and why it's essential for stronger decision-making. Most people associate solitude with loneliness, but in reality, solitude is one of the most powerful tools for strengthening the mind, sharpening decision-making, and cultivating personal growth. While society often glorifies constant social interaction, research shows that those who regularly spend time alone without distractions develop greater emotional resilience, deeper self-awareness, and superior cognitive abilities. A groundbreaking study from the University of Virginia found that people who actively embrace solitude exhibit better emotional regulation, improved focus, and stronger long-term decision-making skills. This is because solitude allows your mind the space it needs to process complex thoughts without the clutter of external opinions, leading to clarity and confidence. History has repeatedly shown that the most influential figures, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Warren Buffett, and Bill Gates, understood this power and used solitude strategically. Marcus Aurelius wrote his profound meditations during moments of solitude, reflecting on leadership and inner peace away from the chaos of Rome. Bill Gates famously takes think weeks, where he isolates himself to read, think, and strategize, proving that stepping away from distractions can lead to groundbreaking ideas and clearer vision. The difference between loneliness and solitude is simple. Loneliness is a lack of connection, while solitude is a choice to deepen your connection with yourself. Instead of fearing being alone, consider solitude as essential training for self-mastery, allowing you to become more self-sufficient, grounded, and in control of your emotions and decisions. Whether it's starting your day in silence, taking solo walks, practicing digital detoxing, or scheduling time just to think, integrating solitude into your life is not about withdrawing from the world, but about empowering yourself to engage with it more effectively. The greatest minds in history knew that to lead effectively, they needed moments of intentional stillness to cultivate self-discipline and resilience. So, instead of fearing solitude, embrace it as a tool for personal empowerment and strategic thinking, because the stronger your ability to be alone, the stronger your ability to make decisions with clarity and live life on your own terms. Ask yourself, do you fear being alone, or do you fear facing the truths that solitude reveals? If you can learn to be comfortable in your own presence, you will develop a level of clarity, strength, and self-assurance that few ever achieve, and that is the true power of solitude. The role of Stoicism in decision-making and self-control. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is the idea that external events don't define us, our reaction to them does. This principle is a game-changer in today's chaotic world, where emotions are constantly manipulated by media, social pressures, and personal challenges. Marcus Aurelius in Meditations wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This isn't just philosophy. It's a powerful framework for decision-making, leadership, and personal resilience. The ability to control your emotions and respond rationally rather than impulsively is a skill that separates those who lead their lives from those who are led by circumstances. Modern neuroscience backs up this ancient wisdom. Research into cognitive reappraisal, a technique used in therapy and elite performance training, shows that people who can detach from emotional triggers and assess situations logically experience lower stress levels, better decision-making abilities, and higher confidence. This aligns perfectly with Stoic principles. When you master self-control, you become harder to manipulate, because you are no longer reacting impulsively to external pressures. In contrast, those who let their emotions dictate their decisions are easily swayed by fear, anger, or social approval, making them vulnerable to being influenced, deceived, or controlled. This is why marketers, politicians, and manipulators of all kinds target emotional responses, because an emotionally charged person is less rational and more predictable. Think about a moment when you reacted impulsively. Maybe you sent an angry message you later regretted, made a bad financial decision out of fear, or let frustration cloud your judgment in an argument. Now contrast that with a time when you paused, analyzed the situation logically, and responded with control. Which approach led to better results? Stoicism teaches that mastering your emotions is not about suppressing them. It's about understanding them and choosing your response. This skill is especially valuable in high-pressure environments like business, leadership, and personal relationships, where the ability to remain composed and think strategically can make the difference between success and failure. In the modern world, where instant gratification and emotional outbursts are normalized, Stoic decision-making is a competitive advantage. Social media, for example, thrives on triggering emotional reactions, whether it's outrage, fear, or validation-seeking. But a Stoic man does not let himself be controlled by algorithms or fleeting opinions. He understands that his energy is best spent on things within his control, rather than being consumed by external distractions. This principle is reflected in Epictetus's wisdom. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Take the example of Warren Buffett, one of the world's greatest investors. He is known for his calm, calculated approach to decision-making, especially in times of financial crisis when everyone else panics. His philosophy of being fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful is a direct application of Stoic thinking, remaining rational while others are ruled by emotions. This ability to detach from short-term impulses and focus on long-term strategy is why he has outperformed so many others in his field. Similarly, in your own life, whether it's in financial choices, career moves, or personal relationships, your ability to regulate emotions and think long-term will define your success. But self-control isn't just about making smart decisions, it's about mental freedom. When you control your reactions, you are no longer a prisoner to anger, stress, or external validation. You move through life with a sense of inner peace, because you are no longer emotionally dependent on things outside of your control. This is why Stoic warriors, from Roman generals to modern Navy SEALs, train themselves to remain calm under pressure. In fact, elite military units train their soldiers using techniques that are remarkably similar to Stoic practices, such as controlled breathing, mental rehearsal, and detachment from emotional triggers. This ability to stay focused and disciplined in high-stress situations is what makes them elite. So how can you start applying Stoic decision-making and self-control in your daily life? The first step is awareness, recognizing when your emotions are driving your decisions. Before reacting to a situation, pause and ask yourself, is this response based on logic or emotion? Will this matter a year from now? Am I acting out of fear, anger, or ego? This small moment of reflection can be the difference between a wise decision and a regrettable mistake. The second step is acceptance, understanding that you cannot control everything, but you can always control how you respond. The third step is training your mind daily, reading Stoic wisdom, practicing mindfulness, and putting yourself in situations that build mental resilience. At the core of all this is a simple but profound truth. A man who controls himself controls his world. Without self-discipline, you are at the mercy of every insult, every inconvenience, and every manipulation thrown your way. But with emotional mastery, you become unshakable. You gain the ability to navigate life's challenges with clarity, strength, and purpose. The question is, are you ready to take control, or will you keep letting the world dictate your reactions? At the end of the day, your life is yours to shape, and your worth is not up for negotiation. The principles we've covered today aren't just ideas. They are tools for reclaiming your confidence, protecting your peace, and building a life where you are respected and valued. The world will always test you, but you now have the knowledge to stand firm. The question is, what will you do with it? Will you keep tolerating disrespect, second-guessing yourself, and allowing others to dictate your value? Or will you make the decision starting today to stand up for yourself, set boundaries, and live according to your own standards? Because the truth is, no one can take advantage of you unless you let them. No one can control your emotions unless you hand them the power. No one can keep you stuck unless you refuse to move forward. You are not here to be walked over, manipulated, or drained by people who don't appreciate you. You are here to live a life of purpose, self-respect, and strength. That means choosing relationships that uplift you, standing firm in your beliefs, and refusing to let fear keep you trapped in situations that no longer serve you. It means trusting actions over words, confronting issues with courage, and making sure that your kindness is given with wisdom, not at the expense of your own well-being. You owe it to yourself to stop waiting for permission to take control of your life. No more waiting for the right time, the right circumstances, or for people to change. The power to change has always been yours. The moment you decide to own that power, everything shifts. So ask yourself, what is one thing you will change today? Which of these 7 lessons resonated with you the most? Are you going to start setting boundaries? Are you going to stop ignoring red flags? Will you finally trust yourself instead of seeking validation from others? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts, because growth doesn't happen in isolation, and your journey might inspire someone else to take action too. And if you found value in this, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Stoic in Your Life, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Strength, wisdom, and confidence come from action, so take that first step today. Until next time, stay strong, stay resilient, and never let anyone play you for a fool again.